Jacinda Ardern quits, the bombshell resignation no one saw coming. At about 7:15 a.m. on Thursday morning, 24newsread.blogspot.com Deputy Political Editor Craig McCulloch was live on Morning Report to preview the Labour and National Party caucus gatherings. Both, by chance, were meeting in Napier at the beginning of this election year. There would be an announcement of some sort from Labour, McCulloch said. It could be the election date. Maybe something about a promised policy reset. Definitely not a cabinet reshuffle. That would come later, he said. At around the same time, nearby, a group of ministers was gathering. They were meeting before joining the wider Labour Party caucus.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
A group of ministers was gathering. They were meeting before joining the wider Labour Party caucus. They were about to get a big shock. Was Kieran McAnulty's response when he heard Jacinda Ardern was quitting as Labour leader and Prime Minister. I wasn't expecting it. It was a hell of a surprise. McAnulty, a minister outside of cabinet, says there was a bit of a yarn after Ardern broke the news. We all took our moments to thank her for her efforts, and we've all got a moment where personally she's helped us at a personal level, so we wanted to thank her for that as well. It's clearly a decision that's been made in her and her family's interests, and she slugged her guts out for 5.5 years for this country. Ardern's address to ministers was very similar to what she said at the press conference that was to come a few hours later, McAnulty says. But there was another dress rehearsal still to complete. Ardern and the ministerial group then joined the wider Labour caucus, all 65 of them, to send the next round of shockwaves spiralling out from the Napier Memorial Convention Centre. Experienced political reporters noted that the media was unusually excluded from this gathering. Normally, this opening address to MPs at the caucus retreat is open to reporters. That, indeed, was how Christopher Luxon had proceeded with his National Party caucus on the other side of the hill that morning. A report from the NZ Herald's political editor Claire Trevett said there were concerns about the caucus meeting room being insufficiently soundproof. They wanted to be able to talk about campaign strategies without fear of being overheard. By early afternoon, the cameras were trained on the podium and the news alerts were out for people to watch live as Jacinda Ardern delivered, in Trevett's words, the first ball of the campaign. As it turned out, it would be Ardern's first and last of the year. Ardern carefully dispensed with what turned out to be the most overshadowed announcement of an election date ever. It's October 14th, by the way. The mood of her address quickly shifted as she moved on to the second of her two important announcements. Consideration of the date over the summer, and the impending election and new political term has also given me time for reflection. The tone of this statement suggested something other than a policy reset was about to be announced. I believe that leading a country is the most privileged job anyone could ever have, but also one of the more challenging. You cannot, and should not do it unless you have a full tank plus a bit in reserve for those unexpected challenges. This summer, I had hoped to find a way to prepare for not just another year, but another term, because that is what this year requires. I have not been able to do that. And so today, I am announcing that I will not be seeking re-election and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February. The last, and biggest, of the shockwaves rippled out from a roomful of shocked reporters across a nation still in halfway holiday mode. A cascade of questions followed: who would take over? What would Ardern do next? Did this spell doom for Labour's chances at the election? Prior to informing her cabinet and caucus colleagues, Ardern says she had shared her decision with only a very, very small number of people. Deputy Prime Minister Grant Robertson appears to have been among them. But Ardern wasn't offering any names. It's safe to assume her fiancé Clark Gayford, who was in the room and walked arm in arm with her as she left it, had a say. Ardern addressed him during the press conference. To Clark, "Let's finally get married." Their daughter, Neve, was apparently not in the loop, though. 4-year-olds are chatty, Couldn't take the risk, Ardern joked. But there were special words reserved for her too. To Neve, Mum is looking forward to being there when you start school this year. Beyoncé Clark Gayford, who was in the room and walked arm in arm with her as she left it, had a say. Ardern addressed him during the press conference. To Clark, let's finally get married. Their daughter, Neve, was apparently not in the loop, though. 4-year-olds are chatty, couldn't take the risk, Ardern joked. But there were special words reserved for her too. To Neve, Mum is looking forward to being there when you start school this year. Is looking forward to being there when you start school this year.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.